Daniel Hayes set the fork down, his hand trembling as he stared at Nora Kensington across the counter. "I'm going to marry you." His voice was rough, absolute. "I don't care that we met 5 minutes ago. I don't care that you think I'm insane. That pie—" He pointed at the half-eaten slice between them. "That pie just told me everything I need to know about who you are, and I'm not leaving this store until you understand that I mean it." Nora's laugh came out bitter defensive. "You're out of your mind." "Probably," he agreed, his dark eyes burning into hers. "But I've never been more certain of anything in my life. You're mine. You just don't know it yet." Before we continue with Nora and Daniel's story, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment of their journey. And comment below with the city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's see what happens next. Nora stared at him, her fingers gripping the counter so hard her knuckles went white. "Get out! Can't do that." Daniel moved further into the store, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. "Already paid for the pie. That means you have to listen to what I have to say." "That's not how this works." She shoved the wrapped pie across the counter toward him. "Take it and leave." He didn't reach for it. Instead, he leaned against the counter, his dark eyes never leaving hers. 3 days ago, I bit into your apple pie. Best thing I ever tasted. Yesterday, I had your cherry. Even better. This morning, I woke up thinking about what else you could make, and I realized something. That you're insane, Nora snapped. That I'm done being alone. His voice dropped soft but unwavering. I'm 32 years old. I've worked ranches from Montana to Texas. I've saved every penny I could, and I'm ready to build something that matters, but I can't do it by myself. Then find yourself a wife who wants you. Nora turned away from him, busying herself with straightening the already straight jars on the shelf behind her. I'm not interested in being anyone's project. You think that's what this is? He laughed low and rough. Nora, I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to save myself. She whirled back around. How do you even know my name? Mrs. Henderson at the boarding house told me. She also told me you've been alone since your parents died, that you work harder than any 2 men combined, and that you don't let anyone close enough to hurt you. He paused. She thinks you're lonely. Mrs. Henderson needs to mind her own business. Nora's voice cracked on the last word, betraying her. Maybe, Daniel said gently. But she's not wrong, is she? The question hung between them like smoke. Nora wanted to deny it, to throw him out, to protect the careful walls she'd built around her heart. But something in his eyes stopped her, a recognition, a mirror of her own carefully hidden ache. Why me? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because when I tasted that pie, I didn't just taste apples and cinnamon. I tasted care, patience, love baked into every layer. He straightened his full height, suddenly making the store feel smaller. I've eaten 1,000 meals in my life, Nora, but I've never tasted anything made with that kind of heart. And I thought, what kind of woman puts that much of herself into something as simple as a pie? What kind of woman has that much to give, but keeps it locked away in pastry instead of sharing it with someone who'd treasure it? You don't know anything about me. But her protest was weak now, her defenses crumbling under the weight of his words. I know you lost everything and built yourself back up from nothing. I know you're strong enough to stand alone, but brave enough to bake pies that tell the truth about who you really are. He reached across the counter, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his hand. I know that when you wrapped this pie, you made the edges perfect, even though I'd never notice. Because that's who you are, someone who does things right, even when nobody's watching. Nora felt tears prick her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. This is insane. You can't just walk into someone's life and decide you want them. Why not? Daniel's voice was calm, reasonable. People spend years courting and still marry strangers. At least I'm honest about what I want. What you want? Nora repeated, her anger flaring again. What about what I want? What do you want? He asked it like a genuine question, like he actually cared about the answer. She opened her mouth to tell him to leave again, but different words came out. I want to not be afraid anymore. The admission shocked her. She'd never said it out loud before, never let anyone see that deep inside where the loneliness lived, like a permanent ache. Daniel nodded slowly. Me too. Then why are you doing this? Nora gestured between them helplessly. This is terrifying, because being alone for the rest of my life is more terrifying. He finally picked up the pie, cradling it carefully in his large hands. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow, Nora. I'm asking you to let me prove that I mean what I say. Let me court you properly. Let me show you that I'm a man worth taking a chance on. And if I say no, his smile was sad. Then I'll respect it. But I'll also keep buying your pies because they're still the best thing I've ever tasted, and I'm not fool enough to give that up. Despite herself, Nora felt the corner of her mouth twitch. You're relentless. When it matters, yes. He headed toward the door, then paused. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Same time. And Nora, think about what I said. Think about whether you want to keep baking your heart into pies, or if you're ready to give it to someone who'll treat it like the treasure it is. The door closed behind him, leaving Nora alone in the sudden silence. Her hands were shaking now, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous. Hope. She was still standing there frozen in place when Mrs. Henderson bustled in 20 minutes later with her shopping list. Was that Daniel Hayes I saw leaving? The older woman's eyes twinkled with knowing mischief. Yes. Nora forced herself to move to resume her work, to pretend her entire world hadn't just tilted on its axis. Handsome man. Good man too, from what I hear. Works hard, saves his money, doesn't drink or gamble. Mrs. Henderson picked up a jar of preserves, examining it closely. Came to Georgetown 3 weeks ago to work at the Miller Ranch. They say he's the best horse trainer they've ever seen. I didn't ask. But Nora's voice lacked conviction. Mrs. Henderson set down the preserves and fixed Nora with a look that had made stronger women confess their secrets. Child, I've known you since you were in pigtails. I watched you survive what would have broken most people. I've seen you build a life out of nothing but flour and determination. But I've also seen you lock yourself away like you're serving a sentence instead of living a life. I'm fine, Mrs. Henderson. You're surviving. That's not the same as living. The older woman's voice gentled. Your mama, God rest her soul, wouldn't want you to be alone forever. Mama wanted a lot of things that didn't happen. Nora's throat tightened. She wanted to see me married. She wanted grandchildren. She wanted to grow old with Papa. We don't always get what we want. No. Mrs. Henderson agreed. But sometimes, if we're brave enough, we get what we need. And that young man? He's not here by accident, Nora. The good Lord doesn't bring people into our lives without a reason. After Mrs. Henderson left, Nora closed the store early. She walked back to her small room above the bakery, climbed the narrow stairs, and sat on her bed, staring at nothing. Daniel's words kept echoing in her mind. You're going to marry me. Not a question. Not a request. A promise. She should have been furious. She should have reported him to the sheriff for harassment. Instead, she was wondering what it would feel like to say yes. That night, she barely slept. And when morning came, she found herself rising earlier than usual, braiding her hair with more care, choosing her best dress. She told herself it was just another day, just another customer. But when the store door opened at exactly 7 o'clock and Daniel walked in, her heart gave a traitorous leap. Morning, he said, his voice warm and easy, like they were old friends. Morning. She couldn't quite meet his eyes. I've been thinking about what kind of pie I want today. He approached the counter slowly, giving her time to bolt if she wanted to. What do you recommend? The peach is fresh. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Made it yesterday. Peach it is. He waited while she wrapped it, then handed her the coins. Their fingers brushed, and Nora felt electricity shoot up her arm. Can I ask you something? You're going to whether I say yes or no. He grinned. True. Did you think about what I said yesterday? I thought about how crazy you are. But there was no heat in it. And Nora took a breath. This was her chance to end it, to send him away, to protect herself from the possibility of pain. But when she looked at him, really looked at him, she saw something that made her hesitate. She saw loneliness that matched her own. She saw hope that refused to die. She saw a man who was brave enough to ask for what he wanted instead of hiding behind propriety and fear. And I think you should know that I don't date. The words came out before she could stop them. I don't go to dances or church socials. I don't flirt or play games. If you're looking for someone to entertain you while you're in Georgetown, you're wasting your time. I'm not looking for entertainment. Daniel's voice was serious now. I'm looking for a partner. Someone who understands what it means to work hard and build something real. Someone who knows that love isn't about pretty words and easy promises. It's about showing up every day and choosing each other even when it's hard. You're talking about love, and you don't even know me. But Nora's protest was weaker now. Then let me know you. He leaned forward slightly. Have dinner with me. Tonight. Let me prove I'm serious. I don't... She stopped. What was she going to say? That she didn't have time, that she didn't want to. Both would be lies. Where? Mrs. Henderson's boarding house. She sets a good table, and it's proper plenty of witnesses, so you know I'll behave myself. His eyes crinkled at the corners. 6 o'clock. Nora knew she should say no. She should protect herself, keep her distance, maintain the walls that had kept her safe for 3 years. But she was so tired of being safe, so tired of being alone. 6 o'clock, she heard herself say. Daniel's smile was like sunrise. I'll be counting the minutes. After he left, Nora sank onto the stool behind the counter and pressed her hands to her flushed cheeks. What had she just done? The day crawled by. Every customer seemed to take twice as long. Every task felt impossible to focus on. By the time 5 o'clock arrived, Nora was a bundle of nerves. She closed the store, rushed upstairs, and stared at her meager wardrobe in despair. 3 dresses, all practical, all worn. Nothing suitable for dinner with a man who looked at her like she was something precious. Finally, she chose the blue one. It had been her mother's, and it still smelled faintly of lavender. She brushed out her hair, letting it fall loose for once, instead of pinning it back. She looked at herself in the small mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her eyes were bright with something that looked dangerously like excitement. You're being foolish, she told her reflection. He's going to break your heart. But she went anyway. Mrs. Henderson's boarding house was bustling when Nora arrived. The older woman met her at the door with a knowing smile. He's been here since 5:30, pacing like a caged animal, she whispered. Poor man's half sick with nerves. The information shouldn't have pleased Nora as much as it did. She let Mrs. Henderson lead her to the dining room, where Daniel stood the moment he saw her. You came. He said it like he'd been half afraid she wouldn't. I said I would. Nora let him pull out her chair, feeling awkward and formal and strangely giddy all at once. They sat. Mrs. Henderson brought food, roasted chicken potatoes, fresh bread. Nora couldn't taste any of it. She was too aware of Daniel across from her, too conscious of how he watched her, like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. Tell me about your parents, he said after a few minutes of stilted silence. Nora's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Why? Because they made you who you are. Because I want to understand where you came from. He set down his own fork, giving her his full attention. If that's too hard, we can talk about something else. But I want to know you, Nora. All of you. Not just the parts you think are safe to show. She should have deflected, should have changed the subject. Instead, she found herself talking. My father was a miner, good man, honest. He worked himself to death trying to provide for us. The words came slowly at first, then faster. Mama took in sewing baked pies for the hotel. When Papa died in the cave-in 4 years ago, she kept going, kept baking, kept fighting. But she was never the same. She died a year later, just gave up, I think. The doctor said it was her heart, but I know it was really just broken. And you've been alone ever since. It wasn't a question. I've been free. Nora lifted her chin. There's a difference. Is there? Daniel asked gently. Or have you convinced yourself that being alone is the same as being strong? The question hit like a physical blow. Nora stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I should go. Wait. Daniel stood too, his hand reaching out, but not quite touching her. I'm sorry, that was too much too fast. You think... She was breathing hard, fighting tears she refused to shed. Sit, please. He gestured to her chair. Let me try again. Let me do better. Nora hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to run to protect herself, to retreat behind her carefully constructed walls. But something in Daniel's eyes held her a vulnerability that matched her own, a genuine regret that seemed real. Slowly, she sat. Daniel did the same, and when he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, more honest. I lost my parents too. Different circumstances, but the end result was the same. I was alone at 16, with nothing but the clothes on my back and a saddle. He looked down at his hands. I learned to work hard, learned to keep moving, keep my head down, never stay in one place long enough to care about anyone. It worked for a long time. But lately, I've started to realize that surviving isn't the same as living. And I want to live, Nora. I want to build something that lasts. I want to wake up next to someone who knows my worst parts and chooses me anyway. I want... He stopped, swallowed hard. I want what my parents had before they died. I want what your parents had. I want love that's real enough to survive anything. His eyes met hers. And when I tasted your pie, when I saw how much care you put into something so small, I thought maybe this is my chance. Maybe God brought me to Georgetown for a reason. Maybe I'm supposed to stop running and start building. Nora felt her throat tighten. You can't possibly know all that from a pie. No, Daniel agreed. But I know it from watching you, from seeing how you hold yourself together when I know you want to fall apart. From hearing the way people in town talk about you with respect, with admiration, with love. You've made a place for yourself here, Nora. You've built something real, and I want to be part of it. I want to help you build it even bigger. I want... Stop, Nora whispered. Please stop. He fell silent, watching her with those dark, patient eyes. I can't do this if you're not real, she said finally. I can't let myself hope if this is just some passing fancy, some romantic notion that's going to fade when you realize I'm not who you think I am. Who do I think you are? Someone worth fighting for. Her voice cracked. Someone worth staying for. And you don't think you are? Daniel asked. I don't know. The admission cost her. I don't know what I am anymore. I used to be someone's daughter, someone's helper, someone who mattered to people who loved me. But now, I'm just... here. Just surviving. Just baking pies and trying not to think too hard about the fact that nobody would notice if I disappeared tomorrow. I would notice. Daniel's voice was fierce. Mrs. Henderson would notice. Half the town would notice. You matter, Nora. You matter so much that people go out of their way to buy your pies, even though they could get cheaper ones elsewhere. You matter so much that Mrs. Henderson brags about you to every stranger who'll listen. You matter so much that I haven't been able to think about anything else since I met you. Nora wiped at her eyes, angry at the tears that refused to stay hidden. You're either the best liar I've ever met, or the most foolish man alive. Probably the second one. Daniel smiled, and it transformed his entire face. But I'd rather be a fool who tries than a coward who walks away from something that could be extraordinary. They finished dinner in a different kind of silence, not uncomfortable, but weighted with possibility. When Daniel walked her back to her room above the bakery, they didn't touch, didn't kiss, didn't make promises they might not keep. But when he looked at her in the lamplight and said, "Tomorrow morning, same time," it felt like a vow. Tomorrow, Nora agreed. That night, she lay awake thinking about pies and promises about cowboys who spoke truth instead of pretty lies, about what it might mean to stop surviving and start living. And somewhere across town, Daniel Hayes lay awake too, thinking about a woman who baked her heart into pastry and wondering if he was brave enough to prove he deserved it. The next morning came too fast and too slow all at once. Nora was already at the store by 5, her hands working through pie dough with mechanical precision while her mind raced in circles. She'd barely slept, and when she finally did drift off, she dreamed of dark eyes and promises that felt too good to be true. She was pulling the first pies from the oven when the door opened. 6:30. Daniel was early. Couldn't wait. She didn't turn around, didn't trust herself to look at him yet. Didn't see the point in pretending I could. His voice was rough, like maybe he hadn't slept either. Besides, I wanted to catch you before the morning rush. There is no morning rush. Nora set the pies on the cooling rack, finally turning to face him. He looked tired, but determined, his hair still damp from washing his shirt pressed clean. He'd made an effort. That realization did something dangerous to her heart. Then I wanted to catch you before I lost my nerve. Daniel moved closer, stopping just short of the counter between them. I have a proposition. Another one. Nora tried to sound exasperated, but it came out breathless instead. Come to the ranch today. Let me show you what I do, who I am, when I'm not standing in your store begging for pies and a chance. He pulled something from his pocket, a small wooden carving of a horse, delicate and perfect. I made this last night when I couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop thinking about you, so I figured I might as well do something useful with my hands. Nora took the carving, running her fingers over the smooth wood. It was beautiful, crafted with the same care she put into her baking. You made this in one night. I'm good with my hands. He said it simply, a statement of fact. Good with horses too. That's why the Millers hired me. But I want you to see it for yourself. Want you to understand that I'm not some drifter who'll be gone next week. I'm building something here, Nora, and I want you to be part of it. I can't just leave the store. But even as she said it, she was thinking about how Mrs. Henderson could watch it for a few hours. About how she hadn't taken a day off in 3 years. Can't or won't? Daniel challenged. Does it matter? Yes. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. Because one means you're trapped, and the other means you're scared. And I need to know which one I'm fighting. Nora set the carving down carefully. What if it's both? Then I'll help you with the first one and prove to you that the second one's not necessary. He straightened. One afternoon, Nora. Give me one afternoon to show you I'm worth the risk. She should say no, should protect herself, should remember that hope was dangerous and trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But when she looked at the little wooden horse at the time, and care he'd put into making something beautiful just for her, she felt her resolve crumbling. One afternoon, she heard herself say. But I need to be back by 4 to prep for tomorrow. Daniel's grin was like sunlight breaking through clouds. I'll have you back by 3. An hour later, Nora found herself sitting beside Daniel in a wagon watching Georgetown disappear behind them. Mrs. Henderson had practically shoved her out of the store, delighted to play matchmaker. Now, with nothing but open road ahead and Daniel's solid presence beside her, Nora felt panic rising in her throat. You're thinking too hard. Daniel didn't look at her, keeping his eyes on the road. I can hear it from here. I'm thinking the appropriate amount for someone who's known you for 3 days and is now alone with you in the middle of nowhere. We're 5 minutes from town. But he smiled. And you're not alone with me. You're alone with a man who's trying very hard not to mess this up. Is that supposed to be reassuring? Is it working? Despite herself, Nora laughed. A little. They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the morning sun warm on their faces. Nora tried not to notice how close they were sitting, how every bump in the road brought their shoulders together. Tried not to think about how natural this felt, how right. Tell me about horses, she said finally, needing to fill the silence before her thoughts ran too wild. What do you want to know? Why them? Why not cattle or sheep or farming? Daniel considered this, his hands steady on the reins. Horses are honest. They don't lie about what they feel or what they need. You treat them right, they'll die for you. Treat them wrong, they'll let you know immediately. There's something pure about that, something I respect. Sounds like you understand them better than people. Most people lie, Daniel said quietly, to themselves, to each other. Horses don't have that problem. What you see is what you get. And what do you see when you look at me? Nora asked before she could stop herself. Daniel pulled the wagon to a stop, turning to face her fully. I see someone who's been lying to herself for 3 years, telling herself she's fine when she's drowning, telling herself she doesn't need anyone when she's dying for connection, telling herself she's strong when what she really is terrified. Nora flinched. That's not fair. No, Daniel agreed. But it's true. Just like it's true for me. I've been lying to myself too, Nora. Telling myself I was fine moving from place to place. Telling myself I didn't need roots or home or someone to come back to at the end of the day. But I was wrong. We both were. You can't possibly know that, can't I? He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Why do you think you put so much love into those pies? Because you have nowhere else to put it. And why do you think I carved you a horse last night instead of sleeping? Same reason. We're both starving for something to pour ourselves into. Someone who will actually receive it instead of just consuming it and walking away. Nora's breath caught. You're very sure of yourself. I'm sure of this. Daniel's hand dropped back to the reins. But I'm patient too, so I'll keep showing you until you believe it. The Miller Ranch sprawled across a valley like something from a painting Nora had seen once in a book, vast and beautiful and impossibly green. Daniel drove them past the main house toward a series of corrals where horses grazed and moved with lazy grace. This is it, he said, helping her down from the wagon. His hands lingered at her waist a moment longer than necessary, and Nora felt heat flood her cheeks. It's bigger than I expected. The Millers run cattle mostly, but they're building up their horse stock. That's where I come in. He led her toward the nearest corral, where a massive black stallion paced restlessly. That's Thunder. Mean as sin when I got here. Wouldn't let anyone near him without trying to kill them. And now watch. Daniel climbed the fence, dropping into the corral with easy confidence. The stallion's ears went back, but he didn't charge. Instead, he watched Daniel with wary intelligence. Daniel stood still, not approaching, just waiting. After a long moment, he made a soft clicking sound. The horse's ears pricked forward. Another click. The stallion took a step closer. Come on, boy, Daniel murmured. You know me. You know I won't hurt you. Slowly, impossibly, the huge horse walked right up to him. Daniel reached out, stroking the stallion's nose with gentle hands. Good boy. That's my good boy. Nora watched transfixed as horse and man stood together in perfect understanding. She'd never seen anything like it, the way Daniel moved with such confidence and care, the way the supposedly vicious stallion gentled under his touch. How did you do that? She asked when he climbed back over the fence. Patience. Consistency. Showing him every day that I'm trustworthy. Daniel looked at her meaningfully. Same way I'm going to prove it to you. I'm not a horse. No, he agreed. You're much more stubborn. Despite everything, Nora laughed. I should be offended. But you're not. Daniel grinned. Come on, I want to show you something else. He led her to a smaller barn where a mare stood nursing a foal that couldn't have been more than a few days old. The baby was all legs and big eyes wobbling on uncertain feet, while his mother watched with patient devotion. His name's Hope, Daniel said softly. Born 3 days ago. Same day I met you, actually. His mama had a hard time of it. We almost lost them both. But they fought through, and now look at them. Nora moved closer to the stall, her heart aching at the sight of such innocent new life. He's perfect. He will be. Once he figures out how to use those legs. Daniel stood beside her close enough that she could feel his warmth. That's the thing about new beginnings, Nora. They're always awkward at first, always uncertain. But if you give them time, if you nurture them right, they become something beautiful. She knew he wasn't talking about the foal anymore. Daniel, she started, but he cut her off gently. Don't, not yet. Just watch them. Just let yourself feel what this could be like." So she did. She stood there in the warm barn, watching new life stumble and grow, and let herself imagine. Let herself wonder what it might be like to have this, not just the horses and the ranch, but the partnership, the shared purpose, the building of something together. "Mr. Hayes." A voice called from outside. "Boss needs you at the main house." Daniel sighed. "Duty calls. You'll be all right here for a few minutes." "I'll be fine." He hesitated, then squeezed her hand quickly before jogging off toward the main house. Nora stayed with the horses, her mind whirling with everything she'd seen, everything he'd said. She was so lost in thought that she didn't hear the other person approach until a woman's voice said, "So you're the famous pie maker." Nora spun to find a beautiful woman in her late 20s watching her with cool appraisal. She was dressed simply but elegantly, her dark hair pinned up, her posture perfect. "I'm sorry," Nora managed. "The woman Daniel can't stop talking about. The one who's got him acting like a lovesick fool." The woman moved closer. "I'm Catherine Miller. This is my family's ranch." "Oh, it's lovely." Nora felt suddenly shabby in her simple dress, suddenly aware of the flour probably still under her fingernails. "It is." Catherine's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Daniel's done wonders with our horses. We'd hate to lose him." We're not." Nora stumbled over the words. "Aren't you?" Catherine tilted her head. "He seems quite taken. Asked my father for a raise just yesterday. Said he was planning to settle down, needed to prove he could provide. I wonder who he had in mind." Nora's heart hammered. "He asked for a raise? Didn't he tell you?" Catherine's voice was all false sympathy. "How strange. I thought you two were so close. We barely know each other." But even as Nora said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. She knew Daniel in ways that defied logic or time. "Well, you should know that Daniel's a good man, a hard worker. But he's also ambitious." Catherine moved even closer, her voice dropping. "My father's offered to make him foreman in 6 months if he proves himself. It's a good position, steady income, respect, everything a man like him could want. That's wonderful for him." Nora didn't know where this was going, but she felt danger in the air like an approaching storm. "It is, assuming he doesn't throw it away chasing pipe dreams." Catherine's eyes hardened. "See, my father values stability, consistency. He won't promote a man who might run off to start his own place, or who might let personal entanglements interfere with his work." "I'm not an entanglement." Nora's voice came out sharper than intended. "Aren't you? Daniel's been distracted all week, showing up late, leaving early, all to chase after some baker who doesn't even want him." Catherine shrugged. "I'm just saying, if you cared about him at all, you'd let him focus on building his future here, instead of wasting his time on something that's never going to work." The words hit like physical blows. Nora felt her throat tighten, her carefully controlled emotions threatening to spill over. "You don't know anything about us. I know he's going to lose everything if he keeps this up, and I know you're going to be the reason why." Catherine's smile was cruel now. "So maybe ask yourself, is your pride worth destroying his dreams?" Before Nora could respond, Daniel's voice cut through the tension. "Catherine, what are you doing here?" The other woman's expression shifted instantly to pleasant neutrality. "Just introducing myself to your friend. She's lovely, Daniel. I can see why you're so smitten." "Miss Miller?" Daniel's voice was ice-cold formal, in a way Nora hadn't heard before. "I believe your father needs you at the house." "Of course." Catherine smiled at Nora one more time. "It was so nice to meet you. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of each other." After she left, Daniel turned to Nora with concern etched across his face. "What did she say to you?" "Nothing, everything." Nora wrapped her arms around herself. "You asked for a raise. You're up for foreman. I was going to tell you." Daniel moved closer. "I just didn't want to make promises I couldn't keep yet." "You should have told me." Nora's voice shook. "You should have told me you were risking everything by pursuing this, by pursuing me." I'm not risking anything that matters. Yes, you are. The words burst out of her. You're risking your future, your career, your stability, all for someone who doesn't even know if she can give you what you want. What I want is you. Daniel said it simply like it was the most obvious thing in the world. The job's just a job, Nora. But you're everything. That's insane. Nora backed away from him. You barely know me. You can't throw away your whole future for someone you met 3 days ago. Watch me. Daniel's jaw set stubbornly. I don't care about being foreman. I don't care about stability or steady income or any of it if I'm still alone at the end of the day. I've spent 16 years building nothing but a reputation and some savings. It's not enough. It's never going to be enough unless I have someone to share it with. Then find someone else. Nora felt tears threatening. Find someone who won't cost you everything. Someone who's worth what you're risking. There is no one else. Daniel's voice was fierce. Don't you understand that I've been searching for 16 years, Nora? 16 years of moving from place to place, meeting hundreds of people, and not one of them made me feel what I felt the moment I tasted your pie. Not one of them made me think maybe finally I'd found home. A pie? Nora laughed bitterly. You're basing your entire future on a pie. No. Daniel closed the distance between them in 2 strides. I'm basing it on the woman who made it. On the care and love and hope she baked into something as simple as pastry. On the strength it takes to survive what you've survived and still find ways to give to others. On the courage it takes to stand alone and not let the world make you hard. He cupped her face gently. I'm basing it on you, Nora. Just you. And I'm not sorry for it. You should be. But her voice was barely a whisper now, her defenses crumbling under the weight of his words. I'm not, and I won't be. Even if you walk away right now, even if you never speak to me again, I won't regret trying. Because you're worth it. You're worth everything. Nora felt the tears spill over. I'm going to break your heart. Maybe, Daniel agreed. Or maybe you're going to heal it. Either way, I'm willing to find out. Why? She searched his face desperately. Why are you so sure? Because I'm tired of being safe. His thumbs brushed away her tears with infinite gentleness. Because safe means alone, and alone means dying inside a little more every day until there's nothing left worth saving. I don't want safe anymore, Nora. I want real. I want messy and terrifying and beautiful. I want you. I don't know how to do this. The admission cost her everything. Neither do I. Daniel smiled through his own unshed tears. So we'll figure it out together. One day at a time. One pie at a time, if that's what it takes. Nora closed her eyes, feeling his warmth, his certainty, his impossible hope. She should run. Should protect them both from the inevitable heartbreak. But she was so tired of running, so tired of protecting herself from life instead of living it. One day at a time, she repeated, opening her eyes to meet his. Is that a yes? It's a maybe. But she was smiling now. It's a, we'll see. It's a, I'm terrified, but I'm going to try anyway. Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was something precious and breakable and worth every risk. That's all I need. That's everything. They stood there in the barn, holding each other, while the baby horse wobbled nearby and the afternoon sun slanted through the wooden slats. And for the first time in 3 years, Nora let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved this. Deserved him. Deserved a chance at something more than just survival. We should get you back, Daniel said finally reluctantly. I promised you'd be home by 3. You did. But Nora didn't move, wasn't ready to let go yet. Tomorrow morning, Daniel said softly. Same time. I'll buy another pie, and we'll talk about what comes next. What if there is no next? Nora asked. What if this falls apart? Then we'll deal with it when it happens. But I'm betting on us, Nora. I'm betting that what we have is strong enough to survive whatever comes. On the ride back to town, they talked about small things, his work, her baking, the weather, the town gossip. But underneath the casual conversation ran a current of something deeper. Something that felt inevitable and terrifying and right all at once. When Daniel dropped her at the store, he caught her hand before she could climb down. Catherine was wrong, you know. About you not being worth it. About this not working. She's wrong about all of it. How do you know? Because I know what I feel. And I know you feel it too, even if you're not ready to admit it yet. He squeezed her hand. Tomorrow, Nora. Promise me tomorrow. Tomorrow, she agreed. That night, Nora baked 3 pies instead of her usual one. She poured into them all the confusion and hope and terror swirling in her chest. And when she finally went to bed, she didn't dream of being alone anymore. She dreamed of dark eyes and gentle hands, and a future that looked nothing like survival, and everything like life. Daniel was waiting outside the store when Nora arrived the next morning. Not inside buying pie, not knocking on the door, just standing there in the pre-dawn darkness like he'd been there for hours. "You're early," Nora said, fumbling with her keys. "Couldn't sleep." He took the keys from her shaking hands and unlocked the door himself. "Kept thinking about yesterday, about what you said, about you trying." "I said maybe." But her heart was hammering. Maybe's enough. He followed her inside, closing the door behind them. For now, maybe's everything. Nora lit the lamps, trying to steady her breathing. Having him here in the quiet dark felt different than their previous meetings. More intimate. More dangerous. "I need to start the ovens," she said, moving past him toward the kitchen. "I'll help." "You don't know how." "Then teach me." Daniel caught her wrist gently. "Let me be useful. Let me be part of this." So she did. She showed him how to build the fire, how to judge the temperature, how to prepare the dough. He followed her instructions with the same careful attention he gave his horses, and Nora felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just a man pursuing her anymore. This was a partnership forming fragile and new and terrifying. "You're good at this," she said, as he kneaded dough with surprising skill. "Had to cook for myself since I was 16. You learn or you starve." He glanced at her. "But I never learned to make it taste like love. That's all you." "Stop saying things like that." "Why? It's true." "Because it makes me want to believe you." The admission slipped out before she could stop it. Daniel's hands stilled in the dough. "Then believe me. What's stopping you?" "Fear." Nora turned away, checking the oven temperature to avoid his eyes. "Fear that this is too good to be real. Fear that I'll let myself hope and you'll disappear like everyone else. Fear that Catherine Miller was right and I'm going to ruin your life." "Catherine Miller doesn't know anything about my life or what I want from it." Daniel's voice hardened. "She's been trying to push me toward her younger sister since I got here. Thinks I'd make a good addition to the family business. But I'm not interested in being anyone's convenient choice." "Her sister?" Nora spun back around. "She didn't mention a sister yesterday. Because she was too busy trying to scare you off. She thinks if you're out of the picture, I'll settle for second best." He resumed, kneading his jaw tight. "She's wrong. There is no second best. There's only you or nothing." Before Nora could respond, the shop door burst open. Mrs. Henderson stood there, her face flushed with exertion. "Nora, you need to hear this before the whole town starts talking." The older woman's eyes darted to Daniel. "Both of you need to hear this. What's happened?" Nora's stomach dropped. Catherine Miller was at the hotel last night having dinner with her parents and half the prominent families in Georgetown. She made sure everyone heard about how Daniel's been neglecting his duties at the ranch, showing up late, leaving early. Said he's become unreliable ever since he started courting you. Mrs. Henderson paused. She also mentioned that Mr. Miller's reconsidering the foreman position. Said they need someone fully committed to the ranch, not distracted by romance. Daniel swore under his breath. "She's lying. I haven't been late once." "I know that, and anyone who knows you knows that. But Catherine's got influence in this town. Her family's money talks loud." Mrs. Henderson looked at Nora with sympathy. "People are saying you're trouble, that you're going to cost Daniel his future. Some of them are even saying you're using him, leading him on when you have no intention of accepting his suit." "That's ridiculous." Nora's voice shook with fury. I'm not using anyone. I know, child. But talk is cheap and spreads fast. By noon, half the town will believe you're a heartless temptress and Daniel's a lovesick fool. Mrs. Henderson sighed. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but I thought you should know what you're up against. After she left, Nora sank onto a stool, her hands trembling. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Don't. Daniel moved to her, tilting her chin up to meet his eyes. Don't let them win. Don't let Catherine's jealousy and the town's gossip dictate what we do. They're going to destroy you. Nora pulled away. Your reputation, your job, everything you've worked for. All because of me. All because Catherine Miller's a manipulative woman who can't stand not getting what she wants. Daniel's voice was steel. I'm going to the ranch right now. I'm going to talk to Mr. Miller, set the record straight, and make it clear that my personal life is none of his daughter's business. What if he fires you? Then I'll find another job. There are other ranches, Nora, other towns, but there's only one you. He grabbed his hat. I'll be back this afternoon. Don't you dare let anyone make you think this is your fault. He was gone before she could argue, leaving Nora alone with her churning thoughts and rising panic. She tried to work, tried to focus on baking, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. Every pie came out wrong, too much sugar, not enough filling crusts that crumbled instead of flaking. By mid-morning, customers started arriving, and with them came the stares and whispers. Heard you've been keeping company with Daniel Hayes. Old Mr. Peterson said, his tone disapproving. Man's got a good future ahead of him. Shame to see him throw it away on foolishness. It's not foolishness. Nora kept her voice steady. Isn't it? He's known you less than a week, and he's already risking his position at the Miller Ranch. That's not love, girl. That's infatuation. And infatuation fades. The words stung because they echoed her own fears. But before she could respond, another voice cut in. Mr. Peterson, with all due respect, you don't know what you're talking about. It was Tom Brennan, the blacksmith. I've known Daniel Hayes since he came to town. He's not the kind of man who acts on infatuation. If he says he wants to court Nora, then he means it. And anyone who knows Nora knows she's worth courting. Thank you, Tom. Nora felt tears prick her eyes. Don't thank me. Just ignore the gossips. They'll find something else to talk about soon enough. Tom tipped his hat and left. But the gossips didn't stop. All day they came, some supportive, most critical. By the time Nora closed the store at 4, she felt scraped raw and exhausted. She was locking the door when a carriage pulled up. Catherine Miller stepped out, dressed immaculately as always. Miss Kensington, we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Nora turned away. Then listen. Catherine's voice was sharp. My father spoke with Daniel today. He's giving him a choice: give up this ridiculous courtship and keep his position, or continue chasing you and find employment elsewhere. Nora's blood ran cold. He can't do that. He can, and he will. The Millers don't tolerate scandal or distraction. Daniel's good at his job, but he's not irreplaceable. Catherine moved closer. But you can fix this. You can tell Daniel you're not interested. That you were flattered, but you don't return his feelings. He'll be hurt, but he'll get over it. And he'll keep everything he's worked for. You want me to lie to him? Nora's voice was flat. I want you to save him from himself. He's not thinking clearly. He's let emotion override common sense. But you're practical. You've survived this long by being smart. So be smart now. Let him go. No. Catherine's eyes widened. Excuse me? I said no. Nora lifted her chin. You don't get to manipulate me into breaking his heart just because you can't stand that he chose me over your sister. And you don't get to use his career as a weapon to force my compliance. I'm trying to help him. But Catherine's voice had lost its certainty. No, you're trying to control him. There's a difference. Nora stepped closer. Daniel's a grown man who can make his own choices. If he decides I'm worth the risk, that's his decision. Not yours. Not your father's. His. You'll regret this. Catherine's face flushed with anger. When he's unemployed and struggling when he's lost everything because of you, you'll regret not taking this chance to do the right thing. Maybe. But at least I'll regret being honest instead of being a coward. Nora held her ground. Now get off my property before I call the sheriff. Catherine left in a fury of rustling skirts and barely contained rage. Nora watched her go, her entire body shaking with adrenaline and fear, and a strange sense of victory. She'd just made an enemy of the most powerful family in Georgetown. She'd just sealed Daniel's fate at the Miller Ranch. She'd just chosen him over safety and common sense, and everything her practical mind screamed at her to do. And she didn't regret it. Not even a little. She was still standing there when Daniel returned an hour later. He looked tired, but not defeated, determined, but not angry. "I quit," he said without preamble. Nora's heart stopped. "What?" "Mr. Miller gave me an ultimatum, you or the job, so I quit." Daniel shrugged like it was nothing. "Told him I wouldn't work for a man who lets his daughter manipulate his business decisions. Told him the foreman position wasn't worth my integrity or my right to court whomever I choose." "Daniel, no. You can't, you didn't?" Nora couldn't form coherent sentences. "I did, and I'd do it again." He pulled her into his arms. "Catherine came to see you. Didn't she told you to let me go?" "How did you know?" "Because that's what she does. She manipulates and controls and thinks everyone's just a piece in her game." Daniel's arms tightened around her. "But you didn't, did you? You told her no." "How do you know that?" "Because you're still here. Because you're shaking, but you're standing your ground. Because you're brave enough to choose what you want instead of what's safe." He pulled back to look at her. "We match, Nora. Both stubborn. Both willing to fight for what matters." "You're unemployed." Nora's voice cracked. "You threw away everything for me, and we've known each other less than a week." "No, I threw away a job that came with strings I wasn't willing to accept. There's a difference." Daniel cupped her face. "I've already got 3 offers from other ranches. Word travels fast in this business. By tomorrow, I'll have 5 more. I'm good at what I do, Nora. The Millers aren't the only game in town." "But the foreman position was never guaranteed, and it came with conditions I couldn't accept. I don't want to spend my life working for people who think they can control who I love." He kissed her forehead gently. "I want to build something of my own, something real, and I can't do that while dancing to someone else's tune." "What are you going to do?" Nora asked. "I'm going to take that job at the Patterson Ranch. It's smaller, pays less, but the owner's a good man who cares more about character than politics. I'm going to save every penny I can. And in a year, maybe 2, I'm going to buy my own land and start my own operation." His eyes burned with intensity. "And I'm going to do it all while courting you properly, Nora Kensington, while proving every single day that I meant what I said, that you're worth everything. I'm scared." The words came out small and honest. "Me too." Daniel smiled. "But I'm more scared of living a safe, empty life than I am of taking a risk on something real." "What if we fail?" Nora whispered. "Then we'll fail together, and we'll know we tried." He took her hand. "But I don't think we're going to fail. I think we're going to build something extraordinary, something that makes all of this worth it." That evening, Daniel walked Nora home. The town watched them, some with approval, most with judgment. But neither of them cared anymore. They'd made their choice, and there was freedom in that. At her door, Daniel paused. "Can I see you tomorrow?" Properly this time. Not sneaking around before dawn or stealing moments between customers. An actual public intentional date. The whole town will talk. But Nora was smiling. "Let them. I'm done hiding what I feel. I'm done pretending this isn't the most important thing in my life." He squeezed her hand. "Dinner at Mrs. Henderson's, 6 o'clock. And this time, I'm going to hold your hand in front of everyone and not care who sees." "Daniel, I love you." The words came out fierce and sure. "I know it's too soon. I know I'm supposed to wait weeks or months before saying it. But I'm done with supposed to. I love you, Nora. I've loved you since I tasted that first pie and realized that someone who could create something that perfect had to have a heart worth knowing. And I'm going to keep loving you whether you're ready to hear it or not." Nora felt tears streaming down her face. "You're insane." "Probably." He wiped her tears with gentle thumbs. "But I'm also right. And somewhere deep down, you know it too. I'm not ready to say it back." Her voice shook. "I know. That's okay. I'll say it enough for both of us until you are." He kissed her forehead one more time. "Tomorrow, Nora. 6 o'clock. Be brave with me." After he left, Nora climbed the stairs to her room and sat on her bed, her mind reeling. He loved her. Daniel Hayes. The cowboy who'd walked into her store less than a week ago loved her, had quit his job for her, was willing to face the entire town's judgment for her. And the terrifying part, she was starting to love him back. She thought about her parents, about the love they'd shared. Her father working himself to death to provide. Her mother baking herself into an early grave after he died. Love hadn't saved them. Love hadn't protected them from loss or pain or death. But it had given them something worth having. Hadn't it? All those years of partnership and shared purpose, and knowing they mattered to each other. That had to count for something. Maybe that was the choice, not between safety and risk, but between existing and living. Between protecting yourself from pain and opening yourself to joy. Between surviving alone and building something real with someone brave enough to try. Nora pulled out her mother's old recipe book, running her fingers over the faded pages. All these recipes, all this love preserved in flour and sugar and careful instruction. Her mother had baked her heart into everything she made, and Nora had inherited that gift. But maybe it was time to stop pouring all her love into pies and start giving it to someone who could actually receive it. Someone who saw it for what it was and treasured it accordingly. She stayed up late that night baking. Not pies this time, but bread, the kind her mother used to make for special occasions, the kind that took time and patience and hope that it would rise properly. She baked it for Daniel, for tomorrow's dinner, for the future they might build together if she could just find the courage to match his. And when she finally slept, she didn't dream of loss anymore. She dreamed of a small ranch with horses grazing and bread rising, and a man who looked at her like she was worth more than all the gold in Georgetown's mines. She dreamed of possibility, and for the first time in 3 years, she let herself believe it might actually come true. The bread was perfect, golden fragrant, still warm when Nora wrapped it carefully in clean cloth. She held it against her chest, feeling her heart pound beneath the linen, and wondered if this was what bravery felt like, terrifying and exhilarating all at once. She was halfway down the stairs when someone pounded on the shop door below. Hard. Urgent. Not the knock of a customer. Nora's stomach dropped. She descended the rest of the way and opened the door to find Tom Brennan, the blacksmith, his face grim. "Daniel's been in a fight," he said without preamble. The bread slipped from Nora's hands. "What?" "He's at Doc Miller's, no relation to Catherine, thank God. You should come. Now." Nora didn't remember the walk to the doctor's office. One moment she was standing in her doorway, the next, she was pushing through Doc Miller's door to find Daniel sitting on an examination table, his knuckles split and bleeding, his jaw already swelling purple. "What happened?" She rushed to him, her hands hovering over his injuries, afraid to touch. "James Miller happened." Daniel winced as the doctor probed his ribs. "Catherine's brother. He was at the saloon drinking and talking loud about how I'd thrown away my future for a woman who wasn't worth it. About how you'd probably already moved on to the next fool willing to provide for you." "So you hit him?" Nora's voice was flat. "So I hit him." Daniel met her eyes without apology. "Nobody talks about you like that. I don't care who their family is." "You idiot." But tears were streaming down her face. "You beautiful, stupid, impossible idiot." "Could be worse," Doc Miller said cheerfully, wrapping Daniel's ribs. "Could have been his face instead of his fists, though I imagine James looks significantly worse right now." "He does," Tom Brennan spoke from the doorway. "Took 3 men to pull Daniel off him. Never seen anything like it. Daniel fights like he's got something worth protecting. Because I do. Daniel caught Nora's hand with his uninjured one. And I'll do it again if I have to. You can't keep fighting the whole Miller family. Nora's voice shook. Watch me. This is exactly what I was afraid of. She pulled her hand away. You're destroying yourself over me. Getting in fights, losing jobs, making enemies. I'm fighting for something that matters. Daniel stood, ignoring the doctor's protest. For the first time in my life, I'm fighting for something real instead of just surviving. Don't you dare ask me to stop. I'm asking you to be smart about it. Nora's voice rose. Getting beaten up in saloons isn't smart, it's reckless. I didn't get beaten up, I won. Daniel's grin was fierce despite the split lip. And I'd do it again, every single time. You're impossible. But Nora was reaching for him again, unable to stop herself. Absolutely impossible. And you love it. He pulled her close with his good arm. Admit it. I hate it. But she was crying into his shirt now, her hands fisting in the fabric. I hate that you make me feel this much. I hate that I can't protect you from yourself. I hate that every time I think I've got my walls back up, you knock them down again. Good. Daniel's voice was soft against her hair. Because I'm not stopping. Not until you understand that you're worth fighting for. Worth bleeding for. Worth everything. Doc Miller cleared his throat. I'm charging you double for making me witness this, instead of just treating your injuries like a normal patient. Despite everything, Nora laughed. It came out watery and broken, but it was real. Can he still make dinner at 6? She asked the doctor. If he keeps those ribs wrapped and doesn't do anything else stupid for the next 2 hours. Doc Miller fixed Daniel with a stern look. Which means no more fights, no heavy lifting. And for God's sake, no romantic gestures that require physical exertion. I'll behave. But Daniel's eyes were on Nora, warm and full of promise. I've got something worth behaving for now. At 6 o'clock, Nora arrived at Mrs. Henderson's boarding house to find half the town already there. Not just the usual dinner guests, but everyone: shopkeepers, miners, ranch hands, families. They'd come to watch, to judge, to see if Daniel Hayes would really go through with publicly courting the pie maker who'd cost him everything. Mrs. Henderson met Nora at the door, her eyes twinkling. I may have mentioned to a few people that you two would be dining here tonight, and those people may have mentioned it to a few others. And well, she gestured to the crowded dining room, you did this on purpose. But Nora wasn't angry. She was terrified, yes, but not angry. I did. Because you two deserve witnesses to your courage. Because the best way to stop gossip is to give people the truth to talk about instead. Mrs. Henderson squeezed her hand. He's waiting for you at the corner table. And Nora, he brought you flowers. Actually went out and picked wildflowers with bruised ribs and bleeding knuckles. That boy's got it bad. Nora walked into the dining room, and the conversations died. Every eye turned to watch her cross to where Daniel stood. Flowers in hand, his face a mess of bruises, but his smile absolutely radiant. You came. He said it loud enough for everyone to hear. I said I would. Nora took the flowers, her hands shaking. Though I didn't expect an audience. Good. Daniel pulled out her chair, making a show of it. Let them watch. Let them see that I'm proud to be here with you. That I don't care what anyone thinks as long as you're sitting across from me. They sat. The room stayed silent, everyone straining to hear. You look beautiful, Daniel said, his voice carrying. You always do, but especially tonight. You look like you got trampled by a horse. But Nora was smiling. Feel like it too. Worth it though. Absolutely worth it. He reached across the table for her hand. I brought you something besides flowers. From his pocket, he pulled a small wooden box. Nora's heart stopped. It's not what you think, he said quickly. Not yet anyway, but I wanted you to have this. She opened it to find a delicate silver locket, old but beautifully preserved. It was my mother's, Daniel said softly. Only thing of hers I kept after she died. I've carried it for 16 years, waiting for someone worthy of it. Someone who'd understand what it meant that I was giving it to them. Daniel, I can't. Nora's voice broke. You can. You will. His eyes were fierce. Because you're the only one who's ever made me want to stop running. The only one who's ever made me believe that maybe I could have what my parents had. That maybe I could build something real and lasting, instead of just drifting from place to place, waiting to die. That's bleak. But Nora's fingers closed around the locket. That's honest. Before you, that's all I had. Survival without purpose. Work without meaning. Money in the bank and nothing to spend it on that mattered. He squeezed her hand. But now I've got you. And suddenly, I've got reasons to save plans, to make futures, to build. You did that, Nora. Just by existing. Just by being brave enough to let me try. Around them, the room had gone completely silent. Even the servers had stopped moving. Put it on me. Nora handed him the locket. Please. Daniel stood moving behind her chair. His hands were gentle as he fastened the clasp, his bruised knuckles somehow still graceful. When he was done, he bent and kissed the top of her head, a brief, chaste touch that somehow felt more intimate than anything Nora had ever experienced. There, he said, returning to his seat. Now everyone knows. Now there's no going back. Was there ever? Nora asked. No. Daniel's smile was crooked, painful, with the split lip, but genuine. Not from the moment I tasted your pie. Not from the moment you told me to get out, and I knew I'd spend the rest of my life trying to get back in. Mrs. Henderson brought food, then roasted chicken, potatoes, vegetables, and the bread Nora had baked. She'd retrieved it from where Nora dropped it, wrapped it fresh, and now presented it with ceremony. Made by our girl here, she announced to the room. Same hands that make those pies you all love so much. Same heart that goes into every bite. Try it, Nora urged Daniel. Tell me what you taste. He broke off a piece, chewed thoughtfully. When he met her eyes, his were suspiciously bright. Hope, he said. I taste hope. And maybe a little bit of love if I'm not imagining things. You're not imagining anything. The words came out before Nora could stop them. You're not imagining any of it. Say it. Daniel's voice was urgent now. Say what you mean. Say it so I know I'm not crazy. So I know this is real. Nora looked around the room, saw all the faces watching, waiting. Saw judgment in some eyes, hope in others, curiosity in most. She thought about her parents, about the love they'd shared despite poverty and hardship, and eventual tragedy. Thought about how her mother would rather have had those years with her father than a lifetime of safe, loveless existence. She thought about 3 years of surviving alone. 3 years of waking up with nothing to look forward to except more work, more loneliness, more careful walls to maintain. 3 years of telling herself she was fine when she was dying inside. And then she looked at Daniel, bruised and bleeding, and absolutely certain, and made her choice. I love you. Her voice rang out clear and strong. I love you, and it terrifies me. I love you, and I don't know how to do this. I love you, and I'm probably going to mess it up 1,000 different ways. But I love you, Daniel Hayes, and I'm done pretending I don't. The room erupted. Cheers and applause, and a few disapproving grumbles, but mostly joy. Mrs. Henderson was crying openly. Tom Brennan was grinning like a fool. Even some of the critics looked grudgingly moved. But Nora only saw Daniel. Saw the way his face transformed, the way tears spilled down his cheeks, without shame. The way he stood and pulled her up and into his arms, despite his injured ribs. Say it again, he whispered against her hair. I love you. And this time, it came easy. I love you. I love you. I love you. They stayed like that for a long moment, holding each other while the boarding house celebrated around them. When they finally pulled apart, Daniel's eyes were serious. Marry me. Nora's breath caught. What? Marry me? I know it's fast. I know people will say we're crazy, but I don't care. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're mine. I want to build a ranch with you, raise horses with you, grow old with you. I want everything, Nora. and I want it with you. Daniel. Her mind was spinning. I'm not asking you to say yes tonight. I'm just asking you to think about it. To imagine what it could be like if we stopped being afraid and just went for it. He cupped her face. I've got enough saved to buy a small piece of land. Nothing fancy, but it's ours. We could build a house, start a breeding program. Maybe you could sell your pies from home, instead of through the general store. We could make something real, Nora. Something that's just ours. You've thought about this. Her voice was faint. I've thought about nothing else since I met you. Daniel smiled. Say you'll think about it. Say you'll at least consider that maybe, just maybe, this could work. Before Nora could answer, the boarding house door slammed open. Catherine Miller stood there, her face twisted with rage. This is pathetic. She advanced into the room. You're all celebrating like these two have accomplished something instead of making fools of themselves. He's unemployed, she's a baker, barely making ends meet, and they think they're going to build a ranch together. It's delusional. Catherine, leave. Mrs. Henderson's voice was steel. No. Someone needs to talk sense into them before they ruin both their lives. Catherine turned to Nora. You think you love him. You don't even know him. You love the idea of being rescued, of not being alone anymore. But love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't build ranches. Love doesn't survive when reality sets in. You're wrong. Nora's voice was calm. Love does all of those things if it's real. If it's built on honesty and partnership and genuine care instead of convenience and social expectation. Says the woman who's been alone for 3 years because she's too scared to let anyone in. Catherine's smile was cruel. At least I have the courage to be honest about what I want. Security, stability, a place in society. You're just playing house with a cowboy who'll be gone the moment things get hard. He's already chosen me over his job. Nora stood moving to Daniel's side. He's already fought for me, bled for me, given up everything he had for the chance to build something real. That's not playing house. That's commitment. That's stupidity. Catherine's voice rose. And when you're both broke and struggling, when the reality of trying to start a ranch with no money hits, when he realizes you're not worth what he gave up, you'll see. You'll both see. I already see. Daniel's arm came around Nora's waist. I see a woman brave enough to survive losing everything and still find ways to give to others. I see strength and resilience, and a capacity for love that takes my breath away. I see my future Catherine. And it doesn't include your approval, or your family's money, or anything else except her. You'll regret this. But Catherine's voice had lost its certainty. Maybe. But I'd rather regret trying than spend my life wondering what if. Daniel's voice gentled. I'm sorry you can't understand that. I'm sorry you've never felt something worth risking everything for. But that's not my problem anymore. That's yours. Catherine left without another word, the door slamming behind her. The room stayed silent for a moment, then exploded into conversation and celebration again. But Nora barely heard it. She was looking at Daniel, at this man who'd upended her entire life in less than 2 weeks, and feeling something shift in her chest. Something final and complete and absolutely terrifying. Yes, she said. Daniel's eyes widened. Yes, what? Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll build a ranch with you. Yes, I'll risk everything on this crazy, impossible, beautiful thing we have. Nora's voice shook but held firm. Because you're right. I'd rather regret trying than wonder what if. I'd rather fail with you than succeed alone. Daniel didn't say anything. He just pulled her close and kissed her properly this time, in front of everyone, with no hesitation or holding back. And Nora kissed him back, pouring into it all the fear and hope and love she'd been holding in for so long. When they finally pulled apart, the room was going wild. Mrs. Henderson was sobbing. Tom Brennan was shouting congratulations. Even some of the earlier critics looked moved. When? Daniel asked, his forehead pressed against hers. Soon! Nora's hands fisted in his shirt. Before I lose my nerve, before reality sets in and I remember all the reasons this is insane. Tomorrow too soon. Tomorrow's perfect. They talked late into the night, making plans and promises and imagining futures. Daniel described the land he wanted to buy, a small valley with good water and grass perfect for horses. Nora talked about expanding her baking, maybe teaching others, building something bigger than just pies for the general store. "We're going to fail," she said at one point, reality crashing in. "We're going to struggle and fight and probably want to kill each other sometimes." "Probably," Daniel agreed. "But we'll do it together, and that's what matters." "I don't know how to be married, how to share my life with someone after being alone for so long." "Neither do I. We'll figure it out as we go." He squeezed her hand. That's what partnership means, figuring it out together instead of trying to do it all alone. When he finally walked her home, the stars were bright overhead, and the town was quiet. "I can't believe this is real," Nora whispered. "Can't believe I'm actually doing this." "Believe it." Daniel stopped at her door, pulling her close one more time. "Believe that you deserve this. That we both do. That sometimes, if you're brave enough, life gives you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. Even if we're terrified, especially then. The best things in life are terrifying. That's how you know they matter." Nora kissed him goodnight, then climbed the stairs to her room. She lay awake for hours, the locket heavy and warm against her chest, her mind spinning with everything that had happened. Tomorrow, she would marry Daniel Hayes. Tomorrow, she would bind her life to his and trust that love was enough to build on. Tomorrow, she would stop surviving and start living. And for the first time in 3 years, the thought didn't terrify her. It exhilarated her. Nora woke before dawn on her wedding day and immediately wanted to vomit. Not from nerves exactly, though those were present. From the sheer insanity of what she was about to do, marry a man she'd known for 10 days, stake her entire future on a feeling that defied logic and common sense. She was still sitting on her bed trying to breathe when someone knocked on her door. "It's me," Mrs. Henderson's voice called, "and I'm not leaving until you open up." Nora let her in. The older woman took one look at her face and pulled her into a hug. "You're thinking of running," Mrs. Henderson said. "I'm thinking I've lost my mind." Nora's voice was muffled against the older woman's shoulder. "This is crazy. We're crazy." "Completely." Mrs. Henderson pulled back, holding Nora at arm's length. "But you love him, and he loves you, and sometimes that's enough to build on." "What if it's not? What if Catherine was right and we're just playing at something we can't sustain? Then you'll fail together instead of succeeding alone. Which would you rather regret?" Nora closed her eyes. "I'm scared." "Good. That means you understand what you're risking. That means you know this matters." Mrs. Henderson squeezed her shoulders. "Now get dressed. You've got a cowboy waiting at the church who's probably even more terrified than you are." But Daniel wasn't at the church. He was outside Nora's building when she came downstairs, pacing like a caged animal. "You're not supposed to see me before the wedding," Nora said. "I needed to make sure you were still here, still willing." His eyes searched her face desperately. "Are you?" "I'm terrified." But she reached for his hand. "But yes, I'm still willing. I withdrew all my savings this morning, $342. It's not enough to buy the land I wanted, but it's enough to lease it for a year with some left over for supplies." The words tumbled out fast, urgent. "I talked to Patterson. He's giving me work on the side training horses for other ranches. And Tom Brennan said he'd help build the house in exchange for you teaching his wife to bake. We can do this, Nora. It's going to be hard, but we can actually do this. You're trying to convince yourself or me?" "Both." Daniel's laugh was shaky. "I'm about to marry you with nothing but hope and $300 and a plan that could fall apart 100 different ways. I'm allowed to be nervous." "You could still back out." Nora had to offer him the escape, even though the thought of him taking it made her want to die. "Could you?" "No." The answer came without hesitation. "Even if I wanted to, I couldn't. You've ruined me for safe choices, Daniel Hayes." "Good." He pulled her close, breathing her in. "Because you've ruined me for everything else. They walked to the church together, hand in hand, drawing stares from the early morning workers. Inside they found a small crowd already gathered: Mrs. Henderson, Tom Brennan, and his wife Doc Miller. A handful of miners who bought Nora's pies regularly. Some ranch hands from Patterson's place who worked with Daniel. And standing in the back, her face a mask of cold fury, Catherine Miller. "What is she doing here?" Nora whispered. "Probably hoping one of us comes to our senses." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Ignore her. She doesn't matter." But before they could reach the altar where Pastor Williams waited, Catherine stepped into the aisle. "Stop this!" Her voice cut through the quiet church. "Both of you just stop and think for 1 minute about what you're doing." "We have thought about it." Daniel's voice was steel. "Now move. You're throwing away everything." Catherine's eyes were desperate now, not angry. "Daniel, my father's willing to give you another chance. Take back the foreman position, double your previous salary, and a stake in the ranch's future. All you have to do is end this foolishness." "It's not foolishness." Nora stepped forward. "And you need to leave. He's going to resent you." Catherine turned on her. "When he's breaking his back trying to build something from nothing when he realizes what he gave up. When the romance fades and all that's left is hard work and struggle, he's going to resent you. And you're going to spend the rest of your life wondering if you stole his future." The words hit hard because they echoed Nora's own fears. She felt Daniel tense beside her. "You're wrong," he said quietly. "Because my future is standing right next to me. Everything else is just a job, just money, just comfort that comes at the cost of my soul." He looked at Nora. "I'd rather struggle with her than succeed without her. And if you can't understand that, then I pity you. You'll regret this." But Catherine's voice had lost its certainty. "Maybe. But it'll be my regret to carry, my choice to make, my life to live." Daniel took Nora's hand. "Now get out of our wedding." Catherine left finally, her footsteps echoing in the silent church. Pastor Williams cleared his throat. "Well, that was dramatic. Shall we continue?" The ceremony was simple. No fancy dress for Nora, just her best gown and her mother's locket. No suit for Daniel, just clean work clothes and honest eyes. They stood before God and witnesses and promised to love each other through whatever came: poverty, struggle, doubt, fear, everything. When Pastor Williams said, "You may kiss your bride," Daniel cupped Nora's face with shaking hands. "I meant every word," he whispered. "Every single word. So did I." And she had. Despite her terror, despite her doubts, she meant it with every fiber of her being. Their kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, the small congregation erupted in cheers. Mrs. Henderson was crying again. Tom Brennan was grinning. Even Pastor Williams looked moved. "Go build your life," he told them. "And don't let anyone tell you it can't be done." The first month was brutal. Daniel worked from before sunrise to after sunset, training horses at Patterson's ranch, while also trying to clear land on the property they'd leased. Nora kept baking, selling pies through Mrs. Henderson now, while also trying to establish some kind of home in the tiny cabin that came with their land. It wasn't romantic, it was exhausting and hard, and sometimes Nora wanted to scream from the frustration of it all. "I can't do this," she said one night 3 weeks into their marriage. Daniel had come home so tired he could barely eat. His hands were blistered, his shoulders hunched with exhaustion. "Can't do what?" He looked up from his untouched plate. "This. Watch you kill yourself. Pretend this is sustainable." Nora's voice cracked. "You're working yourself to death, Daniel, just like my father did. And I can't watch that happen again. I'm not dying." But his voice was weak, unconvincing. "You're not living either. You're surviving. And that's not what I wanted for us." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. Then he pushed back from the table and took her hand, leading her outside. The sun was setting, painting the valley in gold and purple. "See that?" He pointed to the cleared land, the beginnings of a fence, the small corral he'd built. "That's ours. We did that. Not someone else, not a boss or a benefactor or anyone who could take it away. Us. It's killing you." Nora's tears fell freely now. It's building me. There's a difference. Daniel turned to her. I know I'm tired. I know it's hard. But for the first time in my life, I'm tired from creating instead of just existing. I'm building something that matters. With you. For us. He wiped her tears. Don't give up on me now. Don't give up on us. I'm not giving up. I'm scared. The admission hurt. Me too. Every single day. Daniel pulled her close. But I'm more scared of stopping. Of quitting before we've really tried. Of looking back and wondering what if. What if we fail anyway? Nora whispered against his chest. Then we'll know we gave it everything. And we'll figure out what comes next together. He tilted her chin up. I need you to trust me. Trust that I know my limits. Trust that I'll ask for help when I need it. Trust that this is worth it. I do trust you. She stopped struggling for words. I just love you so much it terrifies me. The thought of losing you terrifies me. You're not going to lose me. Daniel's voice was fierce. I'm not your father, Nora. I'm not going to work myself into an early grave. I'm going to work hard enough to build us a foundation, and then I'm going to ease back and enjoy what we've created. But I need time. And I need you to believe in me. So she tried. She baked and sold and saved every penny. She learned to mend Daniel's clothes instead of buying new. She planted a garden and preserved vegetables for winter. She did everything she could to support their dream. And slowly, impossibly, it started working. 2 months in, Daniel brought home their first horse, a mare in foal that he'd bought cheap because she was difficult. He gentled her with patience and skill, and when she foaled, they had 2 horses instead of 1. This is how we build it, he told Nora, his eyes bright with excitement. 1 horse at a time. 1 breeding pair, then 2, then 4. It'll take years, but we'll get there. Years of this? Nora looked at their tiny cabin, their meager supplies. Years of building, of growing, of becoming something bigger than we are now. Daniel pulled her into his arms. And I can't wait to see what we become. But then winter hit. Brutal and unforgiving, it tested everything they'd built. The horses needed constant care. The cabin was drafty and cold. Money got tight, then tighter, then nearly non-existent. We're going to have to ask for help, Nora said one night in January, watching their supplies dwindle. No. Daniel's voice was sharp. We can make it. We can't. Not without help. And that's not weakness, Daniel. That's reality. Nora moved to him, taking his cold hands in hers. Tom offered to lend us money. Mrs. Henderson said we could store goods at her place instead of paying for supplies. Even Doc Miller said he'd extend credit if we needed it. These people want to help us. I don't want charity. But his resistance was crumbling. It's not charity, it's community. It's people who believe in us investing in our future. Nora squeezed his hands. Let them help. Let us accept that we can't do this completely alone. That's not failure. That's wisdom. Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded just once. Okay, we'll ask for help, but we pay back every penny. Every single one. Every single one, Nora agreed. And they did. As spring came and horses were born and trained and sold, they paid back every loan, every favor, every kindness. It took another year, but they did it. And in the process, they'd built something more valuable than independence. They'd built trust with their community relationships that mattered, a reputation for integrity and hard work. By their 2nd anniversary, they owned the land outright. Had a small but growing herd of quality horses. Had expanded the cabin into a proper house with help from Tom and half the miners in Georgetown. Had established Nora's baking as a legitimate business with orders coming from 3 towns over. We did it, Nora said one evening, standing on their porch and watching Daniel work with a young colt. We actually did it. Not done yet, but Daniel was grinning. This is just the beginning. That night, Nora told him she was pregnant. Daniel's face went through a dozen emotions in as many seconds. Shock, joy, terror, wonder. Finally, he pulled her into his arms and just held her, shaking. We're going to be parents, he whispered. We are. Nora was shaking too. Are we ready? Absolutely not. Daniel pulled back to look at her. But we weren't ready for any of this, and we made it work anyway. We'll figure this out too. Their daughter was born in late autumn, perfect and tiny, and absolutely terrifying. They named her Hope after the foal that had been born the day they met, after the thing that had brought them together in the first place. She's beautiful, Mrs. Henderson said, holding the baby with practiced ease. Looks just like her mama. Acts like her papa, Nora said ruefully, watching her newborn daughter scream with impressive lung power. Stubborn and loud and absolutely certain she deserves the world's attention. She comes by it honestly then. Daniel couldn't stop staring at his daughter, wonder written across his face. Can't believe we made her. Can't believe she's ours. Believe it. Nora reached for his hand. We're parents now. No going back. Wouldn't want to, even if we could. Daniel kissed her forehead. This is everything I dreamed of, and more. The years that followed weren't easy. Raising a child while building a business tested them in ways neither had anticipated. There were fights and tears and moments when they both wanted to give up. But there were also moments of profound joy. Hope's first steps, her first words, her first time sitting on a horse with her father. She's going to be a heartbreaker, Tom Brennan said one day, watching 4-year-old Hope charm a difficult stallion into submission. Got her mama's kindness and her papa's way with animals. God help us, Nora laughed. She's already got him wrapped around her finger. Can you blame me? Daniel called from the corral. Look at her. She's perfect. She's spoiled, Nora called back, but she was smiling. That evening, after Hope was asleep, Nora and Daniel sat on their porch watching the sun set over their valley. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of building and growing and learning to be partners in every sense of the word. Do you ever regret it? Nora asked quietly. Giving up the foreman position, choosing this harder path. Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked out at their land, at the horses grazing peacefully, at the house they'd built together, at the life they'd created. Not once, he finally said. Not for a single second. This, he gestured to everything around them. This is everything I never knew I wanted. Everything I didn't think I deserved. And I have it because I was brave enough to trust what I felt when I tasted your pie. Still going on about that pie. But Nora was crying now, happy tears this time. Always going on about that pie. Because that pie changed my life. You changed my life. Daniel pulled her close. I was so lost before you, Nora. Just drifting from place to place, pretending I was fine when I was empty. But you filled all those empty spaces. You gave me purpose and home and love and a daughter who looks at me like I hung the moon. You gave me everything. You gave me everything, too. Nora's voice shook. Gave me a reason to stop just surviving and start living. Gave me partnership and passion and a love I didn't think existed outside of storybooks. Gave me a family again. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, holding each other as darkness fell. I saw Catherine in town yesterday, Daniel said eventually. She's engaged to some banker from Denver. Looked miserable despite the fancy ring. I almost feel sorry for her. Nora meant it. She chose safety over risk, security over passion, and now she's stuck with the consequences. Like we chose risk over safety, and got stuck with the consequences too. But Daniel was smiling. Except our consequences include a beautiful daughter, a thriving ranch, and love that gets deeper every year instead of fading away. Our consequences are pretty good. Nora kissed him softly. Best decision I ever made saying yes to you. Second best, Daniel corrected. Best decision you ever made was letting me buy that first pie. Everything else just followed. Years later, when Hope was 12, and they had 2 more children, a son who loved horses like his father, and a daughter who baked like her mother, Nora would stand in this same spot and marvel at what they'd built. Not just the ranch, which had grown into one of the most successful breeding operations in 3 counties. Not just the bakery, which now employed 4 women from town and shipped goods across Colorado. But the life. The family. The love that had survived poverty and doubt and struggle and come out stronger on the other side. Tell us the story again, Hope would beg, about how you and Papa met. And Nora would tell it about a cowboy who walked into her store and changed everything with his certainty and courage. About a pie that tasted like hope. About a woman who was brave enough to risk her heart on a man who promised her the world with nothing but faith and determination to back it up. And you lived happily ever after, her youngest daughter would ask. We lived, Nora would correct gently. We struggled and fought and built something real. Happy ever after isn't about everything being easy. It's about choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. It's about building a life together that's worth the struggle. That's boring, her son would complain. That's honest. Daniel would counter, pulling Nora close. And it's the best life I could have imagined. Better than any fairy tale because it's real. Because we earned it together. Because every hard day made the good days sweeter. Because I wake up every morning next to a woman who chose me when she could have chosen safety. And that's worth more than all the easy happiness in the world. Now standing on the porch while Daniel worked below and their children played in the yard. Nora touched the locket around her neck, the one he'd given her that first week, the one she'd worn every day since. Inside were pictures of their children, but the meaning remained the same. It was a promise kept, a future built, a love that had started with a pie and grown into everything that mattered. Mama, come see, Hope called from the corral. Papa's letting me train the new colt. Nora headed down to join her family, her heart full to bursting. Catherine had been wrong about everything. This wasn't playing house or temporary infatuation. This was real, built on hard work and honest love, and the courage to choose each other every single day. Daniel caught her eye as she approached, his smile as warm as it had been that first morning in her store. There she is, the woman who changed everything. The woman who said yes to a crazy cowboy. But Nora was smiling too. The woman who was brave enough to taste hope and choose love over fear, Daniel corrected. Best decision either of us ever made. And watching her daughter work with the colt, watched by a husband who still looked at her like she was everything, surrounded by the life they'd built from nothing but faith and determination and stubborn, beautiful love. Nora knew with absolute certainty that he was right. This was the best decision they'd ever made, and they'd spend the rest of their lives proving that courage and love